So tell me about your life at that time.
I was very fortunate because we lived close to the beach, and I made myself a promise that I would get the boys to the beach at least 4 times a week, because they can be boys. They can run and they can scream and yell and wrestle and so forth. And even then, we lived on a beach, Keawe Kapu in Maui, that is a user-friendly beach. It has no drop-off, it has no rip and so forth. So even when they were 3 and 4, they would have little boogie boards, and they would be charging into the surf and slapping those boards down and riding those waves all the way until they scraped their bellies on the beach. And people would walk by and they would just stop and watch the boys, because they were the personification of youthful, healthy energy. And I would always ask people, I would say, you know, what would be your piece of advice for a mother with 2 young kids? And they all said the same thing. Guess what they said?
What?
They said, enjoy them. They said, we see parents, they're in a rush, they're impatient, they're curt, you know, they're rushing here, they're rushing there. We don't see parents really enjoying their kids, reveling in them, appreciating them. It's drive, drive, drive. So I kept that advice foremost in my mind while my sons were growing up, and boy, have I enjoyed them and continue to.
You know, I think that is some of the greatest advice in the world. Stop and enjoy. You know something? Don't worry about the crumbs on the floor. Don't worry about the house being perfect. You know, somebody's not your friend if they think that you don't take a good care of your house. I mean, when they handed me my son and said I could take him home, I was quite puzzled, because I'm like, this is it? My mother doesn't think I'm competent. You think I am? You know, but don't worry about those things. And I even today wish I could go back and say I wish I even cared less about those things, because every single moment you have is just such a treasure, and the things they say and to watch them learn, I mean, it's just magic. And I have my nephew now, and we have a new baby in the house, and I stop and just relish watching him learn. I mean, you can just see him study everything, and I think he's going to figure out how to break that, but that's okay. You know, but that you just see them learning, and it's such a privilege to be able to do that.
Can we, how many, may I ask a quick question?
Please.
How many have children under the age of 15? Oh, yay. Can I share a story about this?
Please.
This is in the concentration book. And would you like to know how to be here and now instead of here, there, and everywhere? Would you like to know, especially, I look around at the executive women with a lot of responsibilities, with all the priorities you're juggling, and I can only imagine how easy it is to get frazzled. You know, just so much competing for our attention. And the boys and I had a ritual, is that I would always read a story, make up a story, or give back rubs. And these weren't just normal back rubs. We came up with names for our back rubs. So there was Chop Suey, and there was Slap Happy, and there was Bumper Cars, and there was Finger Rain, and there was Electricity. And so one night I was giving them their back rub, and I might as well have been a million miles away. I was speaking the next day. I had to get out early, jump on a plane, go to Oahu. I was thinking, have I packed my tickets? And for some reason, and I don't even know why, my mind came down and came out through my eyes, and I saw the boys as if for the first or last time. And an ordinary moment became extraordinary. And I was flushed with this feeling of gratitude for them. I just marveled at how healthy they were, their curiosity, their joy of life. And what I have found is that we can have the contentment we seek any moment we want. And all we need to do is to see someone or something as if for the first or last time. It instantly moves us into a feeling where we are full of wonder for this person or for this event or activity, and we can do it anytime we want, and it's free.
It is so powerful. I think like everybody else here, when we live in Washington, D.C., it's driving, it's compelling, it's doing, it's being, it's talking, it's just on all the time. And I always stop, it's the presence. The present of the presence. It is embracing where we are at this moment. And at this moment we're together, and all of us are together here. We need to stop and be very present here and not thinking about what's going to happen when you leave here, the phone calls or what you need to do. But be present and really live and take in what you give here, because the wisdom you're sharing today is incredible. I mean, this is like going to a university in a moment. I mean, it's just, and being present here and loving. And I always try to say that, say stop. And I was in Europe last week and I said stop and remember this. Stop and be here. Don't be in the U.S. Be here in this moment, because you don't know when you'll be able to be back there, and you'll never have that moment come back. So it's really, really powerful.
Want to know our one-word mantra for that?
What is it?
Is that when my sons went off to college, we went out for the dinner. the boy said, is it time for the dinner? You know, where you take your son out to dinner, you know, and you just impart all the knowledge you've gained in your life, you know, in 5 minutes. And I distilled it down to 2 things. And I really dug down deep, and I asked myself, if I could only say 2 things to my sons as they go off in the world, what would it be? And one is just what you were talking about, Cynthia. It's the word imprint. Imprint. It's just a couple weeks ago, you're in Europe, and I had an opportunity to speak on a cruise to Rome and Athens and Cairo with my son Tom. And we were very lucky. If you ever have a chance to go, get a personal guide, because a personal guide will take you everywhere where the visitors aren't. So like, we went to the pyramids at the end of the day when everyone else was gone, and we got right out of our little bus, and he took us right over to a camel broker, and 2 minutes later we were on the backs of camels headed off into the desert. And so there we were, out in the desert, looking back at the unobstructed pyramids, surrounded by sand and silence, and it might as well have been 1,000 years ago. And I am sitting there, and I'm looking at my son, and I'm remembering him in his jolly jumper, you know, and I'm remembering all the moments of his life. I'm remembering, you know, when one day in Little League he hit 10 home runs, you know, and I'm imprinting that here he is. I'll morph into another little story. Please. Is that when we were in Hawaii, we would go for walk and rolls every night. I would walk and my sons would roll. They would ride their big wheels or their bikes or their skateboards or something. I would always pluck 3 plumerias from a tree and put it on our pillow at night. And even back then, if you asked Tom what he wanted to do, he would point to the sky and he would say, something to do with up there. Well, Tom Horn graduated from Virginia Tech with a degree in aerospace engineering, physics, math, and astronomy. And a week later, Johnson Space Center from NASA in Houston called him back for an interview. He had lunch with astronauts, and now at age 25, Tom is a certified mission controller working with the ISS, the International Space Station, and the shuttle. So I'm imprinting the moments of his life. I'm looking at him. I'm looking at the pyramids. I'm marveling at the timelessness of this. And see, when we imprint, Queen Elizabeth said, good memories are our second chance at happiness. We can go back anytime we want in our mind and re-experience it as if it's happening right now. So imprint, imprint, imprint.
I love that. You know, and talk about memories. You know, a lot of times we have chance, and women really, and I hate to always generalize to women, but I happen to be one of y'all, so I'm good at that. But one of the things I find is that women, we always hold on to, like, there's a million good memories. There's a compliment that's given to you, and the one thing remember is the one negative, which is this size against all the positive, and we hold on to this one negative. And one of the things I've learned to do is to reframe my memory. And meaning that if I have a negative experience, I choose to stop because I don't want it to own me anymore. And I reframe it as what would have made that a perfect moment. So I change maybe the negative comment and I put it in my head as though it was a positive one. Now I realize that that's not going to trade off the truth of what happened, but what is important to me is the truth of what I need to know. So, because negative comments don't own you, you own yourself. So I think, so you can change your imprinting. I think that is such a powerful, powerful story. That is incredible. Well, I quickly want to move forward because there's so much we need to talk about. Number one, I want to ask you, what's with the chapeau? Everybody who knows you always sees you in a chapeau. Share that story.
One time I was leaving Hawaii to go to the mainland, and I was at the airport, and a 70-something-year-old woman named Hildred Kahalokula, who was really, she was a kahuna.
What's a kahuna?
Kahuna is a wise person in Hawaii, someone who is revered, someone also who usually knows the traditions behind hula or the Hawaiian traditions. And so she saw me and she said, "Sam, what's going on with you?" And I said, "Well, this morning I was on the beach with my sons, and I was thinking it doesn't get better than this, and now I'm on a plane to go to the mainland for 2 weeks, and I don't even want to get on the plane." I said, "I'm homesick and I haven't even left yet." And she took off her hakule. A hakule is a head lei, haku is head, and she took it off and she put it on me and she said, "Now you can take home with you." So for all the 16 years that I lived in Hawaii, whenever I would speak, I would wear a hakule. And it almost became my signature. And when I moved from Hawaii, I didn't feel it was authentic anymore to wear a hakule. I'm not from Hawaii anymore. And so I went to a conference, and at the airport, I ran into a friend of mine, and she said, "You were at that conference?" She said, "Sam, I didn't see you at that conference." And that happened a couple of other times. And so it was winter, and I wore a hat one time, and people would come up and say, "Oh, I'm writing a book, and people told me to find the woman in the black hat." "Oh, I'm working on my keynote, and people told me to find the woman in the black hat." And I realized it really has become kind of an identifier. Is that when I go to a conference now, often people will say, "Oh, if you want to brand your business, look for the lady in the black hat." And furthermore, there's all these additional payoffs of it. I can't tell you how many times I've been in airports, and you know how you're in an airport, you're getting your plane, you're going to your gate and stuff. Someone will pass by, and then they'll stop in their tracks and they'll wheel around and they'll go, "Sam!" And it only registered the hat afterwards. However, we would have gone, whoop, you know, if I hadn't been wearing the hat. So it's an identifier.